Welcome to our session on administrator preparation and special education expertise. How do we close that theory to practice gap? My name is Ginger Christian, and I'm currently a faculty member here at East Tennessee State University in the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Analysis. Prior to my transition to higher education, I had the honor to be a special ed teacher, not just here in Tennessee, but also in Georgia. I also have served in administration and special education support through a role called Response to Intervention and Instruction Supervisor and in the principalship for 5 years. The school that I had the honor to serve as a principal also served the district preschool special education program. We learned a tremendous amount about early intervention and proactive scheduling to support students with disabilities and ensure really positive outcomes during transition in the elementary school setting. I'm looking forward to sharing our work with you today and introducing one of our Rita C. scholars, Megan.
Hi, my name is Megan Odell. I'm with Knox County Schools here in Tennessee. I'm currently the Region 3 Director with Knox County. I supervise 18 schools. Our schools cover elementary, middle, and high schools. My region also covers the rural schools here in Knox County. Previous to this position, I was an elementary principal for 8 years, and prior to that was an elementary general education teacher. I consistently see that special education is a topic that administrators struggle with. Therefore, I applied and was accepted to become a Rita C. Scholar. Also, I'm currently a doctoral student at ETSU.
And my name is Dawn Rowe. I currently serve as the Quillen Chair of Excellence in Teaching and Learning at the Clemmer College of Education and Human Development. Additionally, I serve as a professor in special education in the Department of Educational Foundations and Special Education here at ETSU. My research focuses on evidence-based practices and predictors of post-school success for students with disabilities, including life skills interventions and professional development for educators and families. My work includes implementing practices to enhance post-school outcomes, delivering life skills training, and providing targeted professional development. My background spans roles in the adult service system and as a teacher and transition specialist. My scholarship emphasizes transition assessment, family engagement, and adherence to federal regulations like the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and the Workforce Innovations Opportunities Act. Many principals face challenges due to a lack of adequate graduate coursework or internship experiences in special education, multi-tiered systems of support, and educational law. This gap significantly hinders their ability to cultivate school cultures and climate that support the success of students with disabilities. Dr. Christian and I share a strong interest in advancing educational leadership and special education practices, particularly in rural settings. We are dedicated to promoting equity and inclusivity in education, aiming to empower future leaders to effectively support all students, especially those with disabilities. This is what led us to the conceptualization of Rita C., the Rural Initiative for Training Administrators with Special Education Expertise. This project aims to address critical gaps in the educational leadership and special education in rural settings. By preparing aspiring leaders through comprehensive training in special education administration, multi-tiered systems of support, and inclusive practices, Rita C. fosters a new generation of educators equipped to create equitable and supportive learning environments for all students, particularly those with disabilities. Through collaboration and research-based practices, the initiative seeks to enhance the quality of education in rural schools and ensures that every student has the opportunity to succeed.
In the initial conversation between Dr. Rowe and myself, in the transition of the global pandemic and my role into higher education, the conversation really captured what has been working well and how can we strengthen work based on feedback from our current administrators in our own region and thinking and listening to the national conversation. There were 3 pillars: educational leadership, foundational coursework, research methods, and Rita C. specialized coursework, and internships in rural schools with a focus on special ed leadership. It's important to note that in the ELPA department, we have 2 doctoral concentrations. The administrative endorsement concentration allows current practitioners who are teachers to earn their licensure while they are also working on their doctoral studies, while our school leadership concentration, where I have the honor to be the program coordinator, looks closely at licensed administrators for the purpose of this work, who want to deepen their own understanding in special education law, application to practice, systemic change. So Dr. Rowe and I spent time thinking about what do we want outcomes to look like for our scholars. And that led us to the conceptual framework that you see here before you. We wanted to understand and look deeply at neuroscience, how that is informing student behavior and also adult readiness to be able to encourage a positive school culture and climate, identify and lead effective special education systems, identify and develop curriculum and transition resources. How do we facilitate the connections to IDEA and policy development when we do identify a gap and seek to close that so that the work is sustainable? How are we advocating to maximize resources, thinking deeply about budgets and innovative models that can provide long-term effective outcomes for our students? Lead and expand instructional expertise based on that neuroscience I mentioned before. And of course, how do we lead leaders? As supervisors and principals, how do we lead leaders ourselves? And how do we collaborate with leaders in our community? So we were thoughtful about intentional connections to both the research aspect, the policy and practice, and of course, educational leadership. You can see here, and as we begin to share our story, that the curriculum redesign and the work has been thoughtful and intentional and based on our 9 project objectives. Objective number 1, recruit and admit highly qualified doctoral students. We were able to bring national exposure to this invitation through social media, LinkedIn, we had state support, and I'm happy to share with you we're ready to onboard our 3rd cohort of scholars in this new school year. We have scholars from Alaska, Florida, of course here in Tennessee, Virginia. The administrative endorsement concentration is specific to Tennessee, while our school leadership concentration has a national influence in the conversations students are having with one another. We've been able to mentor admitted doctoral students to Rita C, not only through our onboarding process, but through program coordinators and how they are receiving wraparound services in each concentration. We implement Rita C course content. This has been a very thoughtful conversation, and a curriculum audit and school leadership has provided new lens and learning opportunities and curriculum experiences. And also, of course, our administrative endorsement that we align to the state expectations in CAPE, scholar progress and academic curriculum, completion of research, instruction, and field work competencies, the implementation of Rita C professional seminars, which occur 2 times each semester. We are a year-round program, so our students have seminars every fall, spring, and summer. In order to support the ability for students to transition into the doctoral journey, we also added touch points to help them think about what they're learning and support in real time with academic work and in their field work and internships. We provide dissertation support, provide continuous formative evaluation feedback on scholar progress, and of course, we're going to evaluate the impact of Rita C. So I'm going to ask Megan at this point to talk to us about her seminar experiences and her application of practice in the field.
So as Dr. Christian said, we have multiple seminars through our Rita C experience, 2 that have stood out specifically to me along the way. While I've learned tons from all of them, but 2 in particular that really just pushed my thinking in terms of what work we're doing in the schools is in one session, Dr. Christian shared about IEP services, service times, and the setting where services were received. She shared how student services could impact their access to core instruction and how important it is that we improve access to core instruction for all students. While I know and believe that, it started making me think, why don't we do that more often? And then in a follow-up seminar, Dr. Mims shared about inclusion practices and how we can provide opportunities for students to receive access to core instruction in the general education classroom, no matter their level of ability. So then I started thinking, we all know this is best practice. Why don't we do more of this? And I reflected on my 8 years as a principal And I didn't do more of this because frankly, I didn't know where to start. As we talked earlier, I came from a gen ed background and I did not know how to make this happen in my school. So I started thinking, how do I now make this an impact? When we know better, we need to do better. So how do I now make this an impact in the schools that I help serve? So I started thinking through my internship experience and how I could leverage the knowledge I'd gained through my seminars and to make an impact in my schools. So I started working with our special education department in Knox County. We have facilitators that work and supervise in our schools. And first I went there and said, I want to do more of this. And our facilitators started jumping up and down and rejoicing and saying, thank you, we want to do more of this too, but nobody seems to know how to make it happen in elementary school. So I selected 2 specific principals that I knew were ready for this work and on board with this work, but once again kept saying, but I don't know how to make this work happen. So we sat down all together, first selected our players and who our teachers, both gen ed and sped, would be to make this work move forward. And then our special education facilitators started working specifically with those teachers and training them in inclusion practices. Then I sat down with the 2 principals to talk through master scheduling because master scheduling seems to be the other big hurdle of how do we make this happen. So we thought through different schedules and decided to start small. We just started with 1 grade level. We started with 5th grade because we see that transition to middle school. So how can we start that inclusive practice in 5th grade and make that change now? So we started with 5th grade and worked to make that schedule. Some of it meant some changing in personnel to make sure we had the right people on board that were on board with changing their practices. So we sat down, worked out the schedule, and I'm happy to say we now have 2 schools that in 5th grade will have inclusion in their practices and will have inclusive classrooms, and I'm very excited about that. I know it doesn't seem like a huge difference when you're thinking of 2 schools across a district that has 94, but when thinking of 2 schools and starting small, and I know it's going to make a huge difference, not just for those schools because it will eventually branch out over the other grade levels, but also for our region in general. These principals are already starting at our Principal Institute and our principal meetings, sharing with other principals across the region of the work they're doing and how it's hopefully and planning to impact the work of their teachers and their students. And I know they will continue to share and it will continue to grow. So just being able to see that pushing my thinking of how I can start and make that impact and then going within my district to make that change has been a huge lever for me.
We are very proud of Megan and her leadership in her district and also how she's creating early adoption to move to sustainability and be able to scale up work in her district. I also want to share another example from a separate scholar who learned a tremendous amount of information in 2 of our seminars. One was specific to Dr. David Bateman and through the law lens, but also the instructional resources that are available. And in the summer, she began to think deeply about how she could immediately expand access to evidence-based practices for all of her principals who are supporting all students and students with diverse needs. And she prepared a training, she purchased and provided resources and materials, and immediately began to implement what she had learned with evidence-based practices so we could de-escalate students when they're having a challenging day and engage them again in learning in a real and meaningful way. So that has been an exciting process to watch unfold. And if you can see here, there are 270 hours designated to internship experiences in special education leadership. And the examples that you see before you are completed internship experiences in the first 24 months of our partnership. So our scholars in both the admin endorsement and in school leadership immediately went to work to think about how we could bring innovation to schools and to grow to sustainability. I would bring your attention to the 4 pillars that we have here: instructional leadership for continuous improvement. There's a culture for teaching and learning, professional learning and growth, and resource management. And what we are all learning through this process is how to add really intentional and strong work into what our students experience in P12 and also our students are experiencing here in the higher education world. As we think about the intentional connections to curriculum experiences and dissertation pathways, we have been mindful from the beginning of the grant. How will we implement new curricular experiences for students, but then of course sustain that work in our syllabi as we continue the process of refining based on what we're learning ourselves through seminar experiences and the expertise of the collaboration with Ed Foundations and special education with some of the wonderful people that you've been able to meet here today. So because it is a grant focused on two different concentrations, I want to take a moment and be clear about the pathway for each. The administrative endorsement licensure concentration also aligns to state expectations with TEALS and CAPE. So we've been thoughtful about SPED administration and data-informed performance tasks. We have embedded new learning experiences in our syllabi that align to the goals of our grant, but also provide opportunities for students to make intentional connections to long-term strategic planning. We have 6 courses. There's a new assignment that is connected in each course where students look deeply at serving students with disabilities, the data, goals for academic outcomes, social emotional learning, and they're growing through their mentors, both here at the university, but also their mentors in the field. Emotional intelligence. As part of our conversation in neuroscience, we wanted our scholars to deeply understand this concept. So all of our scholars complete a self-assessment with Emotional Intelligence 2.0, monitor their personal and professional growth, and will complete a post-assessment following the completion of their doctoral degree. Conflict resolution, trauma-informed training, and the seminars that we have added, both concentrations, students from all of our doctoral concentrations can attend these seminars, but we've been very thoughtful about the different places to embed the curriculum experience, the learning tasks that will be sustainable in each pathway of the curriculum and concentration. In school leadership, we have completed a curriculum audit. This has been an exciting process over the last 18 months and is continuing to be refined, but that has allowed us to embed sustainable experiences. For example, the integration of assistive technology modules, conceptual and theoretical frameworks that are specific, case and cadre resources now will continue to live and be refined through these experiences. We also have been thoughtful about our internship course. As a Rita C. Scholar, our scholars complete 270 hours of that experience. So in that curriculum redesign, where we have that course expectation, what training can be sustainable and required for all of our scholars has been a conversation. The trauma-informed training is an excellent example. That is actually through our Strong Brain Institute here at ETSU and is a requirement now for our students as part of their internship in the administrative endorsement concentration. To that point, as we have considered how we can wrap around support during the dissertation process, we crafted an innovative personalized learning platform to support students during their doctoral journey called Pathways. Pathways is an online course through our D2L site that allows students to have access to research resources throughout their program of study. It is not a standalone course. The P12 team started thinking deeply in the first year of the creation of the grant about how we could better support our students through their doctoral journey and maximize interdisciplinary expertise with Dr. Rowe and Dr. Mims, Dr. Chambers, the individuals that serve here at East Tennessee State University. So what you see here is called Pathways. Pathways is designed to assist doctoral students as they progress through coursework, completion of the written proposal, and qualifying, which consists of that written proposal and oral presentation as they prepare for candidacy. Pathways is intentional that there is one module that a student can complete 5 semesters prior to qualifying in preparation for their dissertation. There are resources that allow them to think deeply about the literature review process, the purpose of the study, frameworks that might support. Also, we wanted students to understand the connections to the curriculum experiences they do have. You see numbers before you, 7813, 6450. Those numbers represent quantitative and qualitative research. They represent advanced qualitative experiences. Also, administrative theories and leadership studies, a foundational course in the Ed Leadership degree. This has invited students earlier in the conversation to have conversations with Dr. Rowe and myself and our P12 team about the focus of their research, the purpose of their study. In those earlier conversations in the dissertation journey, what we have found is Dr. Rowe can leverage her expertise with resource development and literature review. We also have been thoughtful about other team members in the dissertation committee. For example, when we have a student who's looking deeply at serving students with complex needs, Dr. Mims is a perfect fit for that committee. So the P12 faculty, we have been committed to support students through a personalized approach. This pathway has provided that place for students to set their own pace, also have a voice in their process and choice, but to receive actionable feedback from us as the professors that are guiding and shepherding them through the dissertation process. We have 4 students currently in dissertation research this year that are Rita C. Scholars, and the research they are looking at spans preschool to transition services in the elementary school settings, how we're making decisions for placement and data that informs that. It's going to be a robust study across several rural districts here in Tennessee. Also, we have a student who's looking at the state to investigate high leverage practices with districts who have a high number of students with disabilities in post-secondary success outcomes, to look deeply at what are they doing well to better inform positive outcomes for students. We have another student who is considering at this time thinking about how she can understand to better support career and technical education teachers in high school settings through professional learning for students when they support students with disabilities. And what does that onboarding process look like? And attention to reading and math resources they might not have considered before. Those are just some examples of how our students are using this work. And finally, we have a student, a Rita C. Scholar, that is focused on secondary leaders and high school principals to better support how we can provide professional learning and a systems approach to thinking about transition with parents and students and teachers in the high school setting. So these are a few examples of the extraordinary research already in progress with our first cohort of Rita C. Scholars. We are deeply grateful for the award that we received through OSEP. The team, the Rita C. team that dreamed and crafted ideas about innovation here at East Tennessee State University and our Ed Leadership Department and the Clemmer College of Education and Human Development to receive this award and recognize that we can leverage so many resources, not only for our students currently in our doctoral program, our Rita C. Scholars, but in ongoing support, even as they graduate and go forth into their individual districts and promote throughout their career to make a significant and sustainable difference for students with disabilities. So we are happy to share resources with you. All that you need to do is you can Google ELPA, E-L-P-A, and Rita C, and you will come right to our homepage if you'd like to spark some thinking about how we shared that information for application and the scholarship award. We look forward to lots of great stories in the future, and we think we're just getting started now.